We give you a reason to stay.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
Live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
This is the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Good morning and good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to the April the 18th edition of the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and you are listening to it on TalkTainmentRadio.com. Radio the way it should be heard. This week's program will be a continuation of last week's program with the words taken out of the book that Neely Fuller has written, the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. If you do not understand, take a moment to pause and try and understand what is being said here. And we will go into it with your calls and Gmails. You can get in contact with the show by calling 1-877-932-9766. You can also Gmail me at the numero number 7, Mr. Bobby, Bobby, at gmail.com. You can also do this. You can watch live the broadcast of the compensatory concept. Go to YouTube and type in the word Talktainment. Hit the space bar and type in the word radio. Scroll down to Talktainment number 2, live on YouTube, and watch the live broadcast. And while you are there, make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the like button. And finally, you can hear a replay of the entire podcast by going to facebook.com/Talktainment. And that's how you can do that. Okay, live from Washington, D.C., and we're very appreciative for him donating his time to be able to do this and to answer your questions and Gmails, and we have a lot. We have Mr. Neely Fuller, and as usual, our custom is to ask him, how are you doing today? So, Mr. Fuller, how are you doing today?
I'm still learning.
You are still learning. Okay, got a lot of calls, got a lot of Gmails from last week off air. So let me start off with this one right here. This comes from Brother D. He said it's probably going to be filed under VGQ, but would like a comment from you. He said, I just want to let you know, Mr. Fuller, that the reason you are always having to repeat yourself every week to black folk on basic aspects of white supremacy, what it is, how it works, is because most of us refuse to accept it. We want to keep believing that one day these suspected white supremacists will change by osmosis. That all they need is more spirituality and diversity in their lives, and history proves that that doesn't work. This recent Starbucks situation is a prime example. The owner is going to shut down the company for a day to retain their white staffers on how to be more civil and respectful to black people. Think about that for a moment. If that doesn't tell you what we're up against, then nothing else will. Elijah Muhammad taught us over 50 years ago who we were dealing with, but we refuse to see it, just like most of us today in the second day, when you will tell us every week what to do. And that is why we continue to suffer the way we have. That's all. Peace, Brother D. Comment on that, Mr. Fuller.
Well, that does come under BGQ. That's a viewpoint.
Yes.
Why white people act the way that they do is for, everyone to make their own judgment about by being observant of everything and all areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And just do this on a daily basis. All of their interactions with black people, all of their interactions with all of the people of color, and last but not least, for sure, predominantly, all of the interactions between people who are classified as non-white and people who are classified as white. Every interaction, is significant, no matter how minor it is. There's no such thing as a minor interaction between white and non-white in a system of white supremacy. Everything is significant. So therefore, you take all of these things into consideration each and every day. Don't miss anything. And look at the whole picture, too, at the same time. Look at the small things, the little detailed things, and also the larger picture of how people interact with each other. And think about, while observing all this, how people should be interacting with each other. Because no people in the system of white supremacy interact with each other in a way that they should. Most of the actions and interactions between the people of this planet called Earth in the system of white supremacy are artificial, superficial, except when people are being honest, then it usually comes out as some type of major conflict. Whenever there's the least bit of honesty, then that honesty reveals something that is there all the time, and that is some type of internal conflict within each individual that comes out to be external, which means they start interacting with each other in a hostile manner, because the system of racism causes people to be hostile at all times, regardless of how it looks on the surface. And everybody is hostile. Black people are hostile with each other.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
In the system of white supremacy. It's there. That poison is there. There's no way to, we can cover it up to a degree and keep it kind of subliminal, but it erupts all over the place all the time. That's why it's difficult for black people to interact with each other on a day-to-day basis without some type of conflict. It's all built into the language and everything, the way we talk to each other. But this is because of the system, for the most part, of white supremacy.
Yes.
And then when we interact with white people, that's the non-white people of the planet, everything, all the handshakes and everything, and the pleasantries and the good mornings and all like that, you can just feel the artificiality.
Yes.
Everybody's aware of it. And it doesn't take much for it to come to the surface in an explosive manner. And this is what, first of all, has to be admitted to. We have to admit we're in a hostile environment all over the planet.
Yes.
24/7. There's nothing pleasant about it. Nothing.
Nothing.
Zero.
Mm-hmm.
It's all phony.
Mm-hmm.
All right? Because it can't be anything else except phony in the system of white supremacy, because the system of white supremacy itself is an artificial system.
Yes.
It's completely out of sync with what should be, where you have an entire world that's based on how people interact with each other based on the color of the skin. And that determines everything. Everything, not some things, everything.
Yes, sir.
All right, is the first consideration. And that's just as artificial as it can be.
Yes, sir.
Particularly when it comes out to be everything that you can dream up that's hostile.
Yes, sir. Just like that, for example, just like that phony war or whatever that was, that phony bombing a few days ago. I didn't understand that, but I do agree with you that the system itself is false or phony. Let's do this. What you were speaking about then would give justification to these arrangements as being what? Toxic, tragic, and terroristic. Would that be a good assessment of that?
Absolutely, as outlined in the textbook for victims that I have written. It's called the tragic arrangement.
Tragic arrangement, okay.
And it's tacky, trashy, and terroristic. I call it the 3 T's.
Okay, tacky, okay.
Yes, tacky is the first one.
Yes.
All of these, the smiles, the good mornings, and all like that. It's tacky, 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 tacky. It doesn't get any better than tacky. And this is also true of the way black people interact with each other.
With each other, yes.
Mm-hmm. No sincerity. I mean, it's just tacky. And all you have to do is just scratch the surface a little bit, and the hostility comes out. I mean, now anytime you try to improve on tackiness between white people or black people with each other, then it moves to the second T. It gets trashy. I mean, the little office part isn't all like that. Starts off being tacky, then it moves from that to trashy, all right? It gets trashy, really, literally. Christmas parties, trashy, 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 all right? And then if you try to improve on the trashiness, then it becomes what? The third T,
terroristic. Mm-hmm.
Somebody starts fighting. Some name is called, all right? And then you got chaos and hostility all over the place at very best. And then if you try to move it back from the terrorism and through the trashiness, then it goes back to being tacky again. And you don't have what the code refers to. Nowhere on the planet do you have what? A quality relationship. A quality relationship. That's the title that I give to it. We've never had that. Nobody has ever experienced it. A quality relationship. What does quality relationships mean? It means in all 9 areas of activity, everything is characteristic of being constructive. I mean, people are thinking constructively, even when they're alone. You're not thinking in a derogatory way of putting somebody down or doing something hostile to someone. I mean, robbing and stealing, I mean, that's not even nowhere on the chart. I mean, and being discourteous and all that. Nowhere in there. You don't have to practice it. It just comes natural. It's an even flow. This is what we should be aiming for. Mm-hmm. In a universal man and a universal woman, in a quality universe. We don't have anything coming anywhere close to that right now.
That would be indicative of something that would be imbalanced in my mind, completely balanced.
You got to have justice. You got to have all the constructive things that would make a universe constructive.
Okay.
And all of the people in that universe constructive. Oh. That's why I say we should be heading for, everybody should be trying to be universal man, universal woman.
All right.
I mean, in equality relationships, across the board, everything constructive.
Yeah, okay. TalkTainmentRadio.com is a 24/7, no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and, of course, politics. Now, here's one that I will share with you, and it is Talking Sports with Mr. Bobby. Premieres every other Tuesday exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. Now, coming up on May the 1st, I believe it is, we're going to have Greg Bell, former NFL pro football player who played for the Los Angeles Raiders and I believe the Green Bay Packers or Buffalo Bills. He will be our guest concerning and talking about what athletes do with their money afterwards. Why are so many of our athletes, in particular African Americans, broke? He will address that. So you make sure that you tune into that Tuesday. I believe it's May the 1st, exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. And while you go there, look at the other shows that TalkTainmentRadio.com has. gives you the times, bios, and all the necessary information that you would need to look up a program that you want to do. Exclusive from talktainmentradio.com. That is radio the way it should be heard. I am Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And if you would like to get in contact with the show, do so right now. Phone lines are open. You may call at 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. If you want to watch and hear the program, you can do that also. All you have to do is go to the YouTube channel and type in the word Talktainment, hit the space bar and type in the word radio, scroll down to Talktainment 2, live on YouTube, where you can watch and hear the program. And while you are there, hit the like button and the subscribe button, and you'll be all there. Okay? All righty. Let's... Oh, my screen went blank on me, so I'll have to get that together here. Okay, got it back. Going to the Gmails. Mr. Fuller, let's see here. This is from Rajib. Says this, good morning, Mr. Fuller. I understand there is no logical way of knowing what the world would be like without the system of white supremacy because it still exists. But you always said once white supremacy ceases to exist, it must be replaced with a system of justice. My question is that if and when the system of white supremacy comes to an end on the planet, how would we as the victims know when it has ended in order for us to replace it with a system of justice? In other words, what are some of the signs, in your opinion, that would allude to us that the racist system has ended without victims being misled? I'm still learning, and thank you for taking the time to respond to my question.
Well, I hope I outlined that in the first 10 minutes or 6 minutes or so of what I just said. A constructive world, a universe of universal people. I mean, people who are doing the very best at all times in all areas of activity, economics, education, an educational system that doesn't teach trash and garbage and whatnot, an entertainment system everywhere, entertainment that is constructive. I mean, all of the movies, all of the theater, all of the plays. I mean, get rid of all the derogatory jokes and whatnot that are put down of people. That's not any way to generate. People think that that's funny. I mean, making fun of people's weaknesses and whatnot, or feeding off of them and whatnot. This is what the system of white supremacy teaches. It's entertaining. I mean, putting down someone. I mean, taking advantage, you might say, in a verbal way or in a entertaining way, they call it, of people's weaknesses or of their frailties, of their faults and whatnot. No, get rid of all of that. Something that we have gotten in the habit of. We think that this is the way to live. We think that this is a part of life. No, this is all artificial. This is generated. It is generated by people who really have hostility in mind on a grander scale. They'll start off making little light jokes and whatnot, then the joke turns out to be not a joke when it winds up with somebody dead, because that's eventually where it all leads, because it's all designed to look around for somebody to say something derogatory about. And from speaking in a derogatory manner toward people or about people, then that morphs into action that's going to be derogatory and hostile and non-constructive and then out and out destructive. That's it, just in the field of entertainment or in education. You have it. In the school books and whatnot. Mm-hmm. School books are mostly about what? War. I mean, you glorify people who make war. And a person that cures somebody of something, that gets honorable mention maybe in some, obscure page in the book. Someone who cures a disease or something like that. You might just, ho-hum. But curing disease is boring. Video games showing people, tearing up things, destroying buildings, blowing up cars, all this type of thing. And then you want to know why people go out and do it when they get big enough to do it. Well, duh. It's obvious. You're generating that type of thinking. All of the public squares taken up with what? General Robert E. Lee. He was a great man. Why? Because he was a warrior. Alexander the Great, slaughtering people. Julius Caesar, another mass slaughterer. All of the people that go out and kill people and destroy things, they are venerated. But some architect that made a building that you could heat at a cheaper rate or something like that, and where, you can take little children into them and keep them warm, keep them from freezing to death at a low rate of cost and without disturbing the environment or something like that. Somewhere somebody is doing that now, and probably, for example, but will that person's name appear in a history book as being prominent? No, that's an also ran. That person's name, hardly will come up in any conversation ever, except among just people who are in that field.
Okay, but the question I would have on that in the dog team was on this. They mentioned some of the people that you have just mentioned, but one, including Adolf Hitler, and then there was some questions about his death or supposed death, or was it his look-alike or stand-in or whatever that made it appear that he was killed then, but maybe he went off to Antarctica. They're still researching that. But they selected who they wanted us to know who did all this killing. But one person who they did not put in the book was allegedly the greatest mass murderer of all, which was King Leopold II of Belgium. Have you heard of him?
Absolutely, I have heard of him, but probably not enough. Because now, if you're talking about mass murder, from what I have heard, they called it the Red Congo at one time.
That's right.
Because he shed so much blood.
Over 10 million people.
Oh, probably much more.
More, yes.
See, they don't report things correctly. When you start talking about racist slaughter, it just goes into infinity. The white supremacists, if they tell the truth, and I don't think the truth will ever be told,
all right,
about the number of people who were thrown into the water, just think, those ships weren't the best of ships. They weren't luxury liners that they haul slaves across. All right, and with those people packed in there the way that they were, and think about the food. You didn't always have food. So you think about now, somebody's going to die from starvation.
Sanitary conditions?
Yes, sanitary conditions. Those ships are going to get lost. They're going to stray off course. They didn't zip across great bodies of water in record time. They were just slumbering along, okay? So they figured right from the beginning, they had to do the math, and they say, hey, we're going to lose half of these slaves we got on this ship before we get where we're going. So we're going to feed them to the sharks because they're going to be dying.
Yes.
Because we don't have that kind of food. We got to have food for our own sailors, all right? We got to have sanitary conditions for the people who are on the ships, of which there are no sanitary conditions, by the way. None. Okay? Couldn't be. You didn't have modern, tissue paper and toilets like you have now.
Yes, sir.
None of that. Nothing similar to it.
Yes, sir.
So all that has to be taken into account.
Okay.
The true story of the transatlantic slave trade alone will never be told.
Will never be told. All righty. Let's take a phone call here. Line number one. Okay, line number one. You are on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead with your question.
Okay, good morning. I'd like to ask a question to Mr. Fuller, and I'm not sure what the topic is today because I just called in, but Mr. Fuller always talks about doing what works and not doing what doesn't work. And although the code is what we need, no contact, no conflict is what we need, I'm finding that when I was doing more non-constructive things, I actually got better results. Not so much in the moral sense, but like from people around me, from things around me. So I guess my question is, why is it that when I choose, like, for instance, interaction with women, when I choose to be, a gentleman, when I choose to be morally sound and do things that I was taught was right and not do things that I was taught was wrong, why is it, well, obviously, I guess he's going to answer my question because I know the answer to the question, but why is it I'm getting better results now from almost mistreating people than I do when I'm trying to be upright and do things the way that the Creator intended for us to do things?
Mr. Fuller?
As far back as I can remember, I remember my 8th grade teacher talking about a conversation he had, and I'm talking about back in the 1940s, conversation he had with a young lady, and it was just a sort of a casual conversation, not having much to do with, he was an English teacher, not much to do with the English class, but just a kind of a personal conversation that he said he recounted with a young lady, a student, once. And he said that they were talking about this young fella who she said was her boyfriend, and she said, but she was going to get rid of him because of 2 words. He was too nice. And my English teacher presented that to the class. How can a fellow be too nice? All right? But I understood it immediately, even back then. I'm talking about the 1940s. Why? Because the culture of white supremacy says, hey, be a thug. Because the system of white supremacy itself is a thug principle. It's a gangster principle. It's organized crime.
Yes.
So it's all about putting down people, killing people, talking in a derogatory manner about people. Nothing decent at all. You run away from anything. See, we have all been poisoned that way. So for what the gentleman who is calling in now is saying, that's the natural order of things in the system of white supremacy. Turn on any television program. When I first started reading, I was reading what? Comic books. But I was reading what? I was reading about a person getting a knot on their head. Somebody hitting somebody over the head with a skillet. All right? Or it was cartoons that's supposed to be funny, but people were doing harm to people. Most of the cartoon heroes are what? People who are dealing with violence. Violence everywhere. I understand the first edition of what we call Superman is selling for millions.
Wow.
Way up in the millions.
Yes.
Yeah, if you can get a first edition.
Okay.
And he's tossing a car up in there, I believe.
Okay, we got to leave that there. TalkTainmentRadio.com. Thank you for the call, by the way. I am Mr. Bobby. I'm the co-host on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., who is live from Washington, D.C. The phone lines are now open, so let me give you that number, 1-877-932-9766. You can also Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y, at gmail.com. You can also access the program by going to YouTube channel, type in the word Talktainment, hit the space bar, type in the word radio, scroll down to Talktainment #2 live on YouTube, where you can watch and you can hear the program and live. And while you're there, hit the subscribe button and the like button. And finally, you can do this when the show is over. You can hear a rebroadcast or podcast of the same program by going to facebook.com/Talktainment, and you'll be right there. We are discussing a excerpt out of Mr. Fuller's book, The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, which we will have him speak about in a few minutes. But on the second page of the book, of the new revised edition, he has typed these words: if you do not understand. That is our topic, was last week, and it is our topic this week. It's very important. It says, if you don't understand. And then he goes on to explain what it is that we don't understand. He says it at the beginning of every program. You will hear this. So this is what we are focusing on. Before I go to the Gmails, let's go to the phone lines. Line number what? Line number one? Line number one, you are on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller. First, Mr. Bobby, I have a request. If you could allow the callers to hear Mr. Fuller's full response. I think the last couple of times I called, I was line dropped and I wasn't able to catch his full response. Not sure if that was a one-off.
Okay, you mean you got cut off?
Yeah.
Okay. Now sometimes we might be up against the break and we just have to do that.
Okay.
We're sorry about that, but thank you,
Okay.
and we'll keep that in mind. Go ahead, please.
No worries.
Okay.
Mr. Fuller. Hi, this is Reggie from Charlotte, North Carolina. Mr. Fuller, my question to you, what does the counter-racist code say about how black people should respond or react to the death of a white supremacist or a suspected white supremacist? Thanks.
Oh, the way you respond is just no response, except to just, if you say anything about it at all, you just acknowledge that the person is dead. That's all. You never rejoice at anybody's death. And that includes, if it comes to it, people that you actually have to kill. You don't rejoice at their deaths. You don't rejoice at taking anybody out of the universe, because you didn't have anything to do with anybody coming into the universe. So you always keep that in mind, that, people come, people are produced, leaves are produced, rocks are produced, air, sunshine. These things are all here when we got here. And people are produced by something that is still a mystery to us. We call it God, Allah, the Creator, the Great Spirit. We have Jehovah. We have different names, but we know we didn't do it, okay? Anybody here, I haven't run into anybody yet who says, I made the sun, and I can tell you the exact date that I did it, or like that. No, they will say that some person did it, but they never claim that it was them personally, all right? So that means that still, overall, is a mystery.
Mm-hmm.
So what you do, you have regard for that, because I appeared into the universe myself, okay? And I don't remember when I got here. I can't tell you anything about what it was like before I got here.
Mm-hmm.
So this thing about, a person being all puffed up, and this is why even back in the early days of what we call the Black Power movement and all that, I was telling people, get out of that thing of saying you're proud to be black, all right? And people say, well, Fuller, how come we can't say that? We got songs out here saying black pride and all like that. We got banners. I mean, it's time for black people to stand up and say, be proud. I'm black and I'm proud and whatnot. I said, no. I said, no. And you say, well, what about white people? They say that. I say, well, let them do what they want to do. But black people shouldn't do that, and for a very logical reason. You didn't have anything to do with it. You be proud of something that you did.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, you don't have to voice it. All right? I mean, if you just do it because it should be done. See, that's the universal man.
Yes.
That's the universal woman. You do it. And a person comes around and says, aren't you proud of what you did? Say, no, I did what I did because that's what I'm supposed to do. As a person who is trying to be a human being, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Why be proud of something that I'm supposed to do anyway?
Mm-hmm.
Naturally.
Okay.
See, we've just gotten so far away. And getting back to the point of the question, no, you don't rejoice at anybody's death. You just state it as a fact. That's all. If the person is dead, the person is dead for whatever reason.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your call. You say from Charlotte? Okay. Mr. Fuller, there was a question or a statement that you've made, I believe, the last 2 weeks, but it was sort of on the line when somebody asked, where are you from? And I believe the reply was, you're from everywhere I have been and everywhere that I've never been. Was it something like that?
It's in the textbook.
Yes.
I am from every place I have ever been. And I am also from, and that's the key term, from every place that I have never been. Now, it takes some thinking. You know, you have to think about that. And I say that that's true. And that's true of everybody. Everybody, everything that's ever existed is from every place that it has ever been. A rock on a hillside is from every place that that rock has ever been. Every molecule in that rock has been someplace. All right? I mean, trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions, maybe, of years ago. The molecules in that rock was someplace else other than where it is now. But it is where it is now. And it is also from all the places that it has never been. Okay? And that's true of all people, all things, all creatures. That applies to everything and everybody. Every speck of dust is from every place that it has ever been, and it is also from every place that it has never been.
At the same time?
At the same time.
Got it.
At the absolute same time.
Got it.
I mean, if you're standing still, you're from every place that you have ever been, and you're also from every place that you have never been. Like you might never have been at that bus stop that you're heading toward.
Okay.
You've never been to that particular bus stop. So you're from that bus stop until you get there. All right?
Yes, sir.
And then you're from wherever you were before you got there. And
Yes.
then when you get on the bus, you're from the bus stop again. But you're also from the place where you're going on the bus.
Okay. Now,
that's the logic.
When a person is seeking an application and now they're basically online for employment at some place and they ask that question, where are you from? That is the compensatory answer that should be given?
No.
Okay.
Because, see, you don't ever say anything that a person doesn't understand.
Okay. Good.
All right. Okay, you never say anything
Gotcha.
to anybody. You know, why say it and the person's not going to understand what you're saying? That's not communicating. See, words, every word that you use is for communication.
Yes, sir.
But I'm saying in a general conversation, afterwards, after you tell the person you're from Cincinnati, Ohio, or from Buffalo, New York, or from Soweto, I mean,
yeah.
You're right. I mean, you can put that down on the paper because that's what the person is expecting you to say.
Yes, sir.
Not add to confusion. All right.
Oh, no confusion.
Right, and in counter-racist science, no black person should ever do anything or say anything that's going to add to confusion because of what? I mean, the white supremacists thrive off confusion.
Yes, sir.
And if a black person's out here adding to confusion, they love it. Because they are the masters of confusion.
Okay.
And so you're always helping them. When you deconfuse a situation, that's what they abhor.
All right.
The white supremacists cannot stand for anybody to step up on a scene and start getting rid of confusion, because they thrive off of confusion.
Yes, sir.
Okay? And they will come after you when you are doing anything. All right? They will come after you in a way of putting down you deconfusing that confusion. All right?
That's sir.
Right, because they can't have that. They got to have confusion in order to thrive.
Okay. All righty. Phone lines are open. Go ahead and call back. 1-877-932-9766 is the number that you can call. Some just effort to call, but now we're where we need to be, so you may call back. Mr. Fuller, this is the time period in which we designate for you to talk about your book, which we implore everyone, if you haven't got a copy, to buy this book. Mr. Fuller, go ahead and speak to your book, please.
You can get the book by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. And everything in the book is directed to the individual person. I want to emphasize that. That's why the basic title of the book is the United, Independent, Compensatory Code System Concept. Now, these words are confusing at a glance because they would confuse me, but they are, all of these words are defined and what they mean and why the book has that title in the book itself. But I don't have time to elaborate on it now. But it has that title, the United Independent, meaning the book is addressed to a person who is supposed to be or trying to be or should be united with what? Not another person per se.
Okay.
We think of people having unity, but with the logic of the universe.
Okay.
This is what is missing, and that's why I call it a compensatory code. Compensatory meaning making up for what's missing. And we need a code for doing that. You know, you need a code for doing anything that is going to be successful. Something you can rely on. That's what code means. It's not secretive. There's nothing secret about it. You can't keep secrets from the white supremacists anyway.
Yes.
Because it's a counter-racist code, and we're subject to the white supremacists, and we're in their prison. So you can't have any real secrets in a prison. I mean, the wardens, after a while, they know what you're doing and how you're doing it. Why? Because they run the prison. They know their prison from top to bottom.
Yes, sir.
The white supremacists run the entire planet. So anything that black people are doing anywhere on the planet, they know about it. Or if they want to know about it, they can find out almost instantly. All right? Because there's nothing that black people can do that's secretive in a system of white supremacy that the white supremacists can't find out about because they know how things are done. See, they are very logical people.
Yes,
all
sir.
right?
Yes, sir. All right. Okay.
But by going to producejustice.com.
Yes.
Right.
And as far as we know, I understand that the book can be obtained in the so-called United Kingdom. Is that correct? You can get it there now?
I've recently been informed that it's back in operation in Canada, too.
Oh, good, good.
I'm going to producejustice.com. And in a very few months, I understand it should be, I've been informed, and I have to keep check on this, that it'll be all over most of what we call Europe.
Oh, man.
Right.
Well, that's good. Okay. Our topic today is if you do not understand, and then Mr. Fuller goes on to explain what it is that you don't understand, how important it is. What line am I on? Line number one? Okay. Line number one. You are on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead with your question.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby and Mr. Fuller. Mr. Fuller, drawing an analogy of a parent and a child. A parent can mistreat a child or treat a child correctly.
But like you say all the time, social mathematics, you can pull out the common denominator and you can just use the word dominance. The parent is dominant over the child. And just like you can pull out the common denominator with the child in relation to the parent, the child is dependent on the parent. So would that be a good representation of black people in the system of white supremacy?
If I understand the question, are black people
children
on the white
in relation to white people in the system of white supremacy?
Absolutely. It says so in the textbook. See, I'm the illegitimate child of the white supremacists. They became my parents. They're my illegitimate parents. The white supremacists are my illegitimate parents. What I call my parents, they're not really parents. They're equal children because they're equal prisoners of war. Always think of black people on the planet Earth in the system of white supremacy as being prisoners of war. Prisoners of war are all equal, regardless of what their rank was. I mean, in ancient times, anything like that. Once you become a prisoner of war, you're just a prisoner of war. I mean, everybody that understands how a prison is run knows that. I mean, the person who was a multi-billionaire outside of prison, I mean, you know, in most prisons, at least, except when they have some kind of hierarchy or something.
Yes.
Somebody's been paid off.
I also have another question.
Everybody's assigned a number when you go to prison, and you eat the same food and go to the same. All right, the black people of this planet are prisoners of war. And so prisoners of war are what? They are in a childlike position. That's what putting a person in prison is supposed to mean. They reduce you to being a child again. All right? So I'm in that category. I can stand up and walk around the prison yard and tell other prisoners that I'm a family man, that I'm the man of the house, that I'm this and I'm that. But to the people who run the prison, I'm just another prisoner, all right? And I'm in a fantasy if I'm going around telling myself that I am in charge of anything. Black people on this planet in 2018, anywhere on this planet, are under the system of white supremacy, which, by evidence, makes them subject to the system of white supremacy, and therefore, by evidence, they can't be men and they can't be women. All right? They are children, boys and girls, just like the white supremacists call us that every now and then.
Boy.
All right, boy. Hey, boy, you know, or they'll say girl,
or gal,
a black female, or a gal, all right, in a derogatory manner.
Yes.
All right, just like they would with prisoners, because that's what we are, okay? And we will remain that as long as we are subject to the system of white supremacy.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
And then we can have an opportunity for the first time that we know about of being men and women.
Okay. All right.
If anybody will remember, I just want to throw this in.
Okay.
That was a commemoration of Martin Luther King's death, all right, just a few days ago, so to speak. And he was in Memphis, Tennessee, and what was on those signs that the people were carrying? The garbage workers in Memphis, Tennessee, when Martin Luther King went down there to help them to get better wages and better working conditions.
Mm-hmm.
They were marching with signs that said what? I am a man. All right?
I am a man.
Yeah, you can look at those, you know, you can look at those old photographs and whatnot. Now, white people don't walk around with signs under any circumstance saying I'm a man. Okay? Why? Because if you're a real man, you don't have to walk around with a sign announcing it.
That's right.
And this is also why black people, black males particularly, as far back as I can remember, truth be told, this is why we use that term a lot. Man, you know, we don't say it so much. Over the years, it kind of changed to dude and whatnot. And I think that might be some of that effeminization thing. I mean, slowly that the white supremacists are putting out now. But black people used to use the term man a lot in their general conversation. Back in as far back as I can remember, up until about the 1960s or 70s, he said, everything was, hey man, what's up, man?
Yeah.
Later on became dog, all right?
Yeah, you're right, it did.
It became dude first.
Yeah.
And dog next.
You're right, it did.
But before then, it was, hey man,
yeah.
Hey man, all day long.
Yeah.
Hey man, where you going, man? What you gonna do? What you gonna be doing when you get off work, man? Hey man, where you going? Yelling from across the street.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
I mean, why? We were trying to reinforce the idea that we were supposed to be men.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had been reduced.
Yeah. I remember that. Hey man, hey man, hey brother.
Yeah.
Okay. In the remaining moments that we have in the first hour, getting back to if you don't understand, and you always say, Mr. Fuller, and what it is, understand racism, what it is and how it works. Everything else that you understand or think you understand will only confuse you. I was noticing that Major League Baseball had what they call Jackie Robinson Day, where all the teams' players had number 42 on, representing Jackie Robinson's number, special celebrations and so forth. But according to my dog team and my research, Mr. Fuller, and you said pay attention to words, I recall the whole scenario that Jackie Robinson was selected. And notice that word, selected, to be the first African-American or Negro, whatever you want to call it, into the major leagues. But he was not the first African-American or black ball player. And we talked about this on my show last night, Talking Sports with Mr. Bobby. The first one, I don't know if you were aware of that, but the first one was a man by the name of Moses Fleetwood Walker. Moses Fleetwood Walker. His statistics are verified in the major leagues that he was the first back in, I believe it might have been 1860 something, I believe it was, and Brother Trent brought that out to us. But I thought about how I was introduced to Jackie Robinson as being the first, but then I found out that he was not the first. Does that surprise you? About how that system works. Robinson was selected, and we were told that he was the first, but that was not true.
Well, I'm not surprised at anything in the system of white supremacy as far as misinformation is concerned. The true story of the interactions between white people and black people from the very beginning will never be told. It was never recorded. Okay? There are millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of stories that will never be known. I mean, there are all kinds of things that have happened.
Yes.
And are happening now that will never be revealed.
Never.
Because there was nobody who recorded it, nobody, sometimes there were no witnesses, and et cetera. All kinds of things that go on. I mean, and this is a tragedy of sorts, but we can get what bits of information we can.
Yes.
And put it in books and whatnot and archives and try to get as much of the story about everything
right.
As we can, but knowing full well that all of history, okay, of the real story of history, I mean, it's just a small bit. I would say maybe about 1% of 1%.
Woo!
Will be known. It should be known. All right, and that's talking about all of history. The real history of the world.
Okay.
People on this planet.
All righty.
How they interacted with each other.
All right, we're going to have to leave that there for the first hour. TalkTameRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. That is radio the way it should be heard. Stay tuned for the second hour here on TalkTameRadio.com. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You've got the power. The world's greatest radio. TalkTainmentRadio.com. Talktainment Radio, worldwide sound. TalkTainmentRadio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
Live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Alrighty. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the second hour of the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and this is an exclusive to TalkTainmentRadio.com radio, the way it should be heard. We call this the Donate Hour because this is the hour that we solicit your funds for the production of the second hour of the Compensatory Concept. Now, all you have to do is you can donate any amount that you want to. You can go to the TalkTainmentRadio.com homepage, and it is on there. And you look under on the right-hand side where it said Listen Live, and down underneath it, just below the phone number, is a Donate button. And you can select whatever amount that you want to donate for this hour, the second hour of the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. and yours truly, Mr. Bobby, as co-host. And that money goes directly to the production of the show. Mr. Fuller and myself are not compensated, for that. Now, there are some that do not like to give that way. You can go to PayPal, mail in money order, no personal checks now. K&E World Network, LLC, DBA, Talktainment Radio, Post Office Box 6184, Columbus, Ohio 43206. You can also do it this way, by electronic check through your bank. K&E World Network, LLC, /DBA Talktainment Radio, Ed Dozier 625 at gmail.com, Post Office Box 6184, Columbus, Ohio 43206. I did that because there were a few people that said that they didn't see the button on the home page. It's on there. It's a yellow button. It is on there, but these are the ways that you can get in contact with the or rather make your donations to the show. I'm supposed to read a couple of names. I'm going to read a couple of names here of donors. Excuse me, you can see on TV I'm shuffling papers here. Okay. Terrence Morgan, Julius Myers, Anita Taylor, Eric Williams, Brian McCarthy, Helen Nance, Anthony McKinn from England, Robert Wade, Alexandria Brown Pitts, Tanya Potts, J.K. Towles, Carolyn Jackson, Hugh Haywood, and B.W. Gifts are some of the people who have donated. If you'd like your name called, just donate, and Ed will give me the papers, and we will do that. Okay, our topic today is, again, if you do not understand. If you do not understand. Take your time to understand that. If you do not understand. Understand what? White supremacy, racism. what it is and how it works. Everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Neely Fuller wrote this, and we're discussing it right now. Phone lines are open, and we have a caller now. What line am I on? Line number one? Okay. Line number one, go ahead with your question for Mr. Fuller.
Hi. My question is for Fuller. What would his codified response be to people who make fun of the way you look?
Oh, you would ask questions. Oh, if that makes a problem, you ask questions. You always address anything that anybody says. If you, just like you're asking me that question, what is the response? So you ask the person if they are, what are they doing and why are they doing it? What are those four things under economics? The use of time and energy, and also includes the interaction between people, because when you any interaction between people is the use of time and energy. So you just simply say, what is it that you're doing and why are you doing it? Okay? And how should I look? And why should I look the way that you say that I should look? I mean, just go into detail. Just ask questions. And don't help the person with the answer. All right? Let the person, just keep asking this one question right after another. Since that person is talking, you want to understand, first of all, what the person is saying and why they're saying it.
Yes.
And what the result is supposed to be. Okay, the way that I look, how should I look? What is it that what do you mean by the way that I look? Do I look correct? Do I have the correct look, or do I have an incorrect look? And if I have an incorrect look, what's incorrect about the way that I look? All right, and what is that supposed to mean? And how am I supposed to act as a result of it? And how are you supposed to act when you see me looking this way? All right? Just go into the question mode and let the person give you logical answers, because all answers, if they're real answers, have to be logical. All right? And that's it. That's how I would do. Like someone said one time to me about some jacket that I had on. It said, Fuller, maybe I shouldn't tell you this, but I think I ought to tell you because somebody else might remark on it. Say, Fuller, that jacket you got on, man. I mean, I say, well, this jacket? He say, yeah, that jacket you're wearing. See, it's out of style, man. So you wearing that jacket and it's out of style. And my response was, how can it be out of style? I put it in the form of a question. He said, because that's not the style now. I said, that went out of style about 15 years ago. I said, that's impossible. How can it be out of style and I got it on?
Yeah.
and now I said that not to be cutesy, but I'm saying all black people should have this type of logical thinking. I say that's logical thinking. See, in other words, why should I wait for someone to tell me what's in style?
Exactly.
I mean, the coat was serving a purpose. The purpose was, to keep me warm, really. I was wearing a coat. And, and that was it. And to me, I had it on, and it was serving that purpose, so I just explained the purpose for the coat.
Mm-hmm.
All right?
All righty. Thank you, caller, for your call. What you say is true, because I've noticed some styles that have been back in the 20s and 30s, even hairstyles. And right now, to this day, 2018, they are back in style.
See, black people, we coming up, we always had this thing about being in style and all like that.
Yes.
But see, we never stopped to think that possibly some white supremacists were setting a style for us to keep us chasing around
yeah.
all our money.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I said, why not just make your own style and stick with it and say, this is the style because I'm wearing it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I take it off, it's out of style.
It's out of style.
All right,
yes.
and when I put it back on, it's in style again. How about them apples?
How about that?
All right.
Okay, good point. Going to the Gmails, let's see here. This is from Mr. Edward. He says this, Mr. Fuller often says that a racist suspect has to prove to every individual non-white person they interact with that they're not racist. Is this because a racist will treat one black person to justify to open up greater mistreatment for the masses? And is this an example of the white supremacists taking every side of every situation?
Oh, sure. The white supremacists, the real skilled white supremacists, will do that when it works for them. And that's taking every side. This is really important. They will start off taking one side of an argument. And then 30 minutes later, it seems like they're easing to the other side of the argument. And then 30 minutes later, they'll switch back to the other side. And then somewhere in between, it will sound like they're taking both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And they do this, why? Because what do the white supremacists thrive off of? Confusion.
Confusion.
See, this causes confusion. You walk away from all of that discussion, what? Confused. And that's exactly where they want you to be. So they'll just say anything. A white supremacist will say anything as long as at the end of everybody saying everything, they have the most power.
Mm-hmm.
All right? That's all they're aiming for.
Yes, sir.
I don't care how they start off or how they end up. At the beginning and at the end, for sure, they want it to always end that they have the same power or more power than they had before in any conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't care how it's rigged. They will say anything. All right?
Okay.
They will switch around. They'll mix and match it. And like I said, one way of getting power over people is to keep people confused.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the easiest ways. The person who is least confused is always the most powerful person in any setting.
Wow. In any setting. Okay. Wow. Let's see here. Going to the Gmails, this is from Sam. He says this, my question for you, Mr. Fuller, is how do you address the concept of social engineering with the compensatory code system concept? One of the definitions of social engineering is as follows: the use of centralized planning in an attempt to manage social change and regulate the future development and behavior of a society. Regards, Sam. So he wanted to know, how do you address the concept of social engineering with the compensatory code system concept?
It's all the same concept. It's just another way of saying it. And everything, what is social and what is engineering? Social is anything that has to do with interaction between people. You know, saying good morning, to a person. That's social. And that's engineered. That's a formality. In order to do what? To get a certain response. You're wishing the person a good morning, whatever a good morning is, and whatever is understood to be a good morning. And the person might wish you one back. See, so that's just a simple case of social engineering right there. So you can socially engineer anything depending on what you want people to do. The white supremacists want people to support white supremacy. All right? That's the white people, being the practitioners of it, that's what they want. And they want the non-white people to fall in line with that social engineering called the system of white supremacy. And then that way they retain that system of white supremacy based on the purpose for the social engineering.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that goes into that. So It's all the same thing, just a different way of wording it.
All righty. Okay. TalkTainMenRadio.com is a 24/7, no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and politics. Now, here's one that I'm going to share with you, and it is Talking Sports with Mr. Bobby, which premieres May the 1st, 2018. Our special, not in-studio guest, but Tell Me Something Good segment of the program will be Greg Bell, former, and it's confirmed, former NFL player for, I believe, the Buffalo Bills and the Oakland Raiders. He will be our guest, and he will be discussing what players do after their money, or why African-American athletes tend to be broke after playing an illustrious career. Very interesting. We've had him on before. But we will have him on, and we will take your calls and any other thing that we may do, plus the latest sports news, up-to-the-date sports news, playoffs, golfs, whatever it is, we will bring it forth to you. That's exclusive to TalkTainmentRadio.com, as the other programs that are on the homepage. When you click on there, and you can see the bios of each one of us and times that the programs has. All that is exclusive to TalkTainmentRadio.com, and that is radio the way it should be heard. I am Mr. Bobby. I am the co-host of the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and our topic today is If You Do Not Understand. If you do not understand. Phone lines are open, 1-877-932-9766. You can also Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. You can also do this. You can view the program live if you'd like by going to YouTube, type in the word Talktainment, hit the space bar, and type in the word radio, scroll down to Talktainment number 2, live on YouTube, and watch the broadcast live. You can do that. While you're there, hit the subscribe and like button. And since this is the second hour of the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Fuller, this is the donate hour. We're not going to tell you how much to donate, but this is the donate hour. And if you go to the home page, right underneath the phone number and the listen live button, there is a yellow button for you to donate. Donate as much as you want. Any amount will do. It all goes to the production of the second hour of the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller. Now, I'm not going to read some of the names right now. I'll read them later. Phone lines are open. Calling 1-877-932-9766. Gmail. Let's see. Who is this from? This is from Nawab. He says this: Mr. Fuller, is racism, white supremacy a disease? I didn't find any entry in the code book pertaining to it, so I thought I'd ask for your take on the idea. And while you're there, also have you ever read the book An American Dilemma by Gunnar Myrdal? I just finished reading the second part to it and was wowed by its ultimate conclusion to the white power structure on what the future solution should be for black Americans in this country. It is a definite must-read for those of you who ever read it. Thanks again for taking the time to read and respond to my question, Brother Jay.
Okay, well, I'll take that last part.
Okay.
I forgot the first part.
Okay, okay.
Yes, I have read that book, but it was many, many years ago. I had forgotten that book completely until he just mentioned it. I had forgotten that I'd read that book.
Okay.
The first large volumes that I read on the race issue, when I think maybe I might have been around maybe 14 or 15 years old when I read that book.
Yes.
Yes, and it probably, a lot of things in that book probably are very valid today.
Okay.
Even though that book was written a long time ago. It was written by a white man.
Yeah, An American Dilemma by Gunnar...
from Sweden.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, Gunnar Myrdal, An American Dilemma. Okay, then that first question was this. He said, Mr. Fuller, is racism, white supremacy a disease? I didn't find any entry in the code book pertaining to it, so I thought I would ask you for your take in this area idea.
Well, one thing that I say always, and that's why I wrote a word guide. It's not in the word guide, I don't think.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
But you can go to just any standard dictionary, and this is what I advise everybody to do. When they think up a word that they think may have something to do with the system of white supremacy or how to eliminate it or anything of constructive value, just as a thought, go to any standard English dictionary or whatever dictionary in the language that you speak, Spanish, French, Dutch, whatever. Go to the dictionary of that language, and in where the English language is concerned, look up the word disease, and then ask yourself, does that word fit the system of white supremacy? And I haven't done that. I'll do that today probably. Now that you have mentioned it, I'll look up and see what is the word disease. What does the word disease mean?
Okay, I see where you're going. Yeah,
specifically. And then I will ask myself, now, does that apply to the system of white supremacy? And I think, just offhand right now, since I haven't looked it up, but I would say it probably does apply. All right? It is a disease, okay, because it's something harmful, that's for sure. It's something that people should try to get rid of, usually when you say disease, all right? So you can look at it within that context, but just look the word up in a standard dictionary. See, the code is not rigid in a way that it says, if it's not in Neely Fuller's book, it's not valid. No, the code is all about seeking all knowledge, everywhere you can get it. I mean, and it becomes a part of a code if it's something that you can make a part of a code that does what? Solves problems.
Solves problems, yes.
Why? Because the world is full of problems.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what the compensatory concept is all about. That's why that's the basic title of the book.
Yeah, solving problems.
Compensatory, solving problems and making up for what's missing.
That's it.
Anything that's missing that should be there.
That's it.
All right, you want to get this in place.
Okay.
Right.
All righty. What line am I on here, sir? Line number one? Okay. Line number one, you are now on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning,
this
sir.
Is Larry
Good morning.
in Dallas, Texas.
Okay, Larry.
I called last week and I asked two questions and I wanted to continue on that, and it was about it being three types of code. There's a racist code, a non-racist code, and a universal code. I'm in computer programming. We do what we call debugging code to figure out where we're going wrong and what's going wrong. And I'm debugging my code for myself, and I see where we're teaching somewhere we're learning fear to fear the white racists, and it's and that's a part of the code that I don't think that people are looking at. Where are we learning this fear from?
Okay, what would be your question?
My question is just let me see. Oh, and my question was, do you think that we're looking at it when we look at it from a worldwide perspective? Can we debug it from a worldwide perspective, or should we go to more of a tribal, meaning American perspective? For all the black people here in America to solve their issue first, then we move on to a worldwide code.
Mr. Fuller?
Oh, no, there's no such thing as an American version of the system of white supremacy. The system of white supremacy is worldwide, and it's not even associated with America. I mean, there's no such place as America. There's no people called Americans, according to counter-racist logic. No people called Africans. No people called Asians, correctly that is. Because in order to be an Asian, in order to be an American, in order to be an African, you have to be a person that practices justice. That's the counter-racist code, according to what I have written, and I think is based on logic. Now, a lot of people might say, well, they don't want to accept that. I mean, they would rather use more orthodox or acceptable terms, but they can do this. Compensatory logic says everything is united independent. So under VGQ, Victims Guaranteed Qualification, a person can say, well, they prefer to use the term American as some type of category, that deals with racism from an American perspective or something like that. A person can do that. I prefer not to do that based on the logic that I have discovered, and that is you can't have the system of white supremacy and an American in the same system at the same time. That is absolutely impossible. And you can't have an African in the system of white supremacy. That is impossible. And you can't have an Asian in the system of white supremacy, because that is impossible. Why? Because the system of white supremacy does not allow Africans, Americans, and Asians to exist. These are just words that are, that people carry. They can, identify themselves as that. The code doesn't prohibit that, because the code says you can call yourself anything that you want to. But according to logic, you can't have Americans, Africans, or Asians in a system of white supremacy, because the system of white supremacy does not allow the practice of justice. And in order to be an American, and in order to be an African, and in order to be an Asian, you have to be a person who practices justice. You can't have justice and the system of white supremacy on the same planet at the same time. It does not compute. The computer goes blank if you push that button. That can't be done. Justice does not exist in a system of white supremacy, not for 1 second, anywhere on the planet or anywhere in the known universe.
Okay. I might shouldn't have used the term American, because I understand what you're saying. But I'm seeing how we're all lumped into the, me being from this land over here and somebody being from a different land, and that person is being used to take resources from me in this land, if that makes any sense.
Well, see, if you understand white supremacy, black people don't own anything. Anything that anybody takes from me, use myself as an example, anything that anybody takes from me, another black person takes something from me, that's the white supremacist's fault. Why? Think about the prison system.
Okay.
All right? Mm-hmm. So a fellow prisoner comes into my cell and takes something. Okay? That's the warden's fault. He's running the prison. So if I'm out at lunch somewhere or out in the prison yard, and while I'm out there, somebody who's mopping up in my prison cell takes some of the items that I have in there. They're not my items anyway. They belong to the warden, too. So they're actually taking the warden's things that the warden let me use. Why? Because I don't own anything. Black people on this planet, in the system of white supremacy, own absolutely nothing. All right? So anything that is taken from me that I'm allowed to have by the white supremacists, because the only reason I'm going to have it is that the white supremacists allow me to have it, is because the white supremacists say, hey, I let that guy go into your cell and take it because I'm the warden, and I let him do that. So if you want it back, you got to deal with me, because I run the entire prison, including the fellow who took it. He's black, too. He's in the prison block just like you are. So if he took something from you, I can take it from him and give it back to you if I want to, or I can let him keep it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way you look at it. Always keep the world as a prison for a black person in mind. And if you're classified as non-white, you are in that prison, and you have nothing when you're in a prison that the warden doesn't have domination over.
Okay.
Not a toothpick.
All righty. Thank you, caller from Dallas. Appreciate your call. Okay, let's see here. How about this? Talktainmentradio.com. We go where you go. Check us out on 94.1 WGRN. Podcasts are available. All you have to do is download the Talktainmentradio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That is radio the way it should be heard. All righty. Stay right there. We're going to have more Gmails and more of your phone calls. Speaking on the subject, if you do not understand. All that and more coming up next. Our topic today is a continuation of last week's topic, which is if you do not understand. This comes from Mr. Fuller when he wrote, if you do not understand white supremacy, racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. So we're honing in on if you do not understand. A term was used earlier in this second hour. A caller called in about social mathematics. And to not be confusing, mathematical sociology is the area of sociology that uses mathematics to construct social theories. Mathematical sociology aims to take sociology theory, which is strong in intuitive content, but weak from a formal point of view, and to express it in formal terms. The benefits of this approach includes increased clarity and the ability to use mathematics to derive implications of a theory that cannot be arrived at intuitively. In mathematical sociology, the preferred style is encapsulated in the phrase, quote, constructing a mathematical model, end of quote. This means making specified assumptions about some social phenom, expressing them in a formal mathematics and providing an empirical interpretation of the idea. It also means deducting or deducing properties of the model and comparing these with relevant empirical ideas. So that's a little bit about social mathematics. Okay, let's see here. If you want to get in contact with the show, you may do so by calling 1-877-932-9766. Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com. I'm not going to get to all of them. Vic, I'm trying to get to yours, but we may not be able to. You can also view the show and hear it by going to the YouTube channel. Type in the word Talktainment, hit the space bar, type in the word radio, and then scroll down to Talktainment #2 live on YouTube and watch the broadcast live. Hit the subscribe button and the like button. Let's go to the phone lines. Number one? Okay. Number one, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller. This is Brother Muko from Baltimore.
Yes, sir.
Where we hold compensatory constructive action discussions. We'll be holding them this Saturday. Unfortunately, I will not be there. We hold them on St. Louis Drive, under the dome across the street from Lake Clifton High School. My brother Rael will be there holding it down this weekend. My question for you and Mr. Fuller, but mainly Mr. Fuller, the display that we had go on in Philadelphia at Starbucks, are you familiar with that? Did you hear any information on it?
Mr. Fuller?
Yes, I saw something on television about the incident there.
Okay. Well, what I would like for you to expound for my care unit in Baltimore, the little that you do know about it, what I've researched is that these young gentlemen, these two young black gentlemen, stayed on code. They didn't fuss, they didn't fight, and they didn't flee. So if you were aware of that part of the situation that went on in Philly, could you elaborate on that and the importance of them not doing that? The purpose that it served for them, for my care unit in Baltimore.
Okay.
Mainly my younger people.
Well, as far as the information that I have heard, that they didn't fuss, what I call those 3 Fs when you have these type of encounters.
Yes.
You didn't fuss, or they didn't fuss, they didn't fight, and they didn't flee. It didn't. First thing is they didn't fuss, but I understand there was some disagreements there, but it might not have risen to the level of what you might call fussing.
Mm-hmm.
They might have asked some questions about what was going on or something like that, but evidently the officers that arrested them didn't interpret it as fussing, from what I could see, and but they were arrested because they were reported to have broken some type of law, all right, in which case the officers probably just acted based on what the report was, that a law has been broken, which I understand that later on they found out that no law was broken.
Yes, no law was broken.
All right, so then that took care of itself. But as far as the conduct of the people who were arrested, that's what the code recommends that you do when someone comes to you with a badge and a gun or some type of weapon, or even without it, but with some type of authority that's supposed to be backed up by law. You don't fuss, you don't fight, you don't flee. You go along with whatever they say do until the matter can be resolved in a different environment, which evidently it was.
Yeah, they still were arrested, though.
Yes, but I understand that, that from what I understand, it didn't make it. They didn't go to the jail. I mean, they went to the jail.
Yes, they did. Yeah,
and they were detained for 9 hours.
Yes.
So that is a legal matter, which means that the officers will probably be in fault, or maybe the report that was made that they had broken a law is in fault. But all of that will be ironed out, I'm sure, in what you call the court procedures, whatever they are. And that's what I always recommend that people do.
Okay.
That's what I would do. If I'm in a coffee shop, or like Gandhi on the train, I mean, in the movie Gandhi, he was thrown off the train because he kept trying to show that he had a ticket to be on the train. But they told him to get his black.
Yeah.
They talked about his anatomy.
Yeah.
Off of that train, or he would be thrown off. All right. And so they threw him off the train, literally, and threw his bags on top of him. Okay. And that's a scene in the movie Gandhi. But he did raise questions in an indirect manner, simply by stating that he had a ticket. They said that they asked him how did he get a ticket. All right, that was a question. But he said, I was sold a ticket. All right. And they say, yeah, but you wasn't sold a ticket to sit where you were sitting. And he said he has a first-class ticket, so he's in first class.
Yes.
And they told him, no, if you're colored, you don't sit in first class. And so I'm just relating this from a movie that's supposed to be based on fact.
Yes, yes, sir.
But I'm saying any type of situation where you're questioned about not being where you should be as a person of color, you don't fuss, you don't fight, you don't flee. You just go along with whatever they're saying because you're in their prison.
Okay. So now, even though they were on code, as Brother Muko pointed out, that does not mean that you will not be arrested or mistreated.
No. I mean, because you're already in prison anyway.
Okay, yeah,
They're just putting you in cuffs and taking you to another section of the prison. That's the way you look at it.
Greater confinement, huh?
If you are a person of color in the system of white supremacy, according to the code, you're always already in jail.
Right.
So it's just like someone coming to your jail cell and say, hey, we're going to put the cuffs on you and take you to see the warden. All right? So what you do is just put your hands out. And you go along with them and go to the warden. Okay? And the warden will tell you what it's all about.
You can get shot having your hands up.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. And they may decide to come into the cell shooting.
Yes.
There's nothing to prevent that.
Okay.
All right? So you just get shot, that's all, because you got to look at yourself as a prisoner of war. Because according to the code, if you're a person of color and you're anywhere on the planet, you are already a prisoner of war in the system of white supremacy.
So you have to expect to be mistreated.
You always expect to be mistreated.
Okay, I got you.
Period.
Absolutely.
We have to put that in our minds. Oh, yeah, you can't do this to me. No. What do you mean they can't do that to you? They've been doing it like forever.
They will do it to you.
and not only that, they've done it to your ancestors and everybody else. You are in prison, folks. You are in prison already.
Already.
And act like a person who's in prison already. Now, but just like Andy the Frame in the movie Shawshank Redemption, always be making plans, all right, to not be in prison, okay?
Yes, sir.
But keep in mind, you are making your plans from within the prison. You're not outside the prison.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Brother Muko, thank you so much for your call, and appreciate your support and your dollars, man. Really appreciate that, man.
No problem. Thank you, Mr. Fuller, and I will continue on tweaking our code here in Baltimore.
All right. Thank you, my brother. All righty. Okay. All right, Mr. Fuller, this is the 45-minute mark, and this is very important because this is the discussion about the compensatory concept, the United Independent Compensatory Concept book. I like that. The United, which you broke down earlier, the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. I looked at it at a different perspective today. With that being said, could you expound on your book, how we can get it, and the latest news on the book?
Yes, you can get the book by going simply to producejustice.com. That's the website, producejustice.com. Like in the production of justice?
Yes, sir.
Producejustice.com, because ultimately that's what we're trying to produce, and then we're going beyond that. In the process of producing justice and eliminating racism, we're trying to produce some people called universal man and universal woman.
Yes.
All right? And that is where black people should be aiming and get out of the ghetto mentality, looking forward to this being a glorified ghetto on the other side of somebody else's enterprise. All right? In this case, the enterprises of the white supremacists. We got to get out of that type of frame of reference altogether. Be able for each individual person, and that's what the book is about, that you become a nation as an individual person. You're a universal person, a universal man, universal woman. As we grow into manhood and the womanhood, we become that by our conduct on a daily basis. And the book is supposed to help us to get there, to get from where we are now to where we should have been in the first place. People of the entire universe, people who are in the most constructive tune with everything in the entire universe, not just a ghettoized people, not just a proud black people on the other side of the white side of town. I mean, that's been our ambition. That's very short-sighted, very short-sighted. You know, another beauty parlor, another barbershop on the other side of town, the other side of the universe, or the other side of what's supposed to be a country, or the other side of the tracks, all right? And, you know, and just dealing with this race thing like forever. No, eliminate racism from the entire universe.
Yes, sir.
And become universal people that can go and function in the most constructive manner anywhere in the universe. That's what the book is supposed to be aimed at ultimately.
Okay.
And it's called a compensatory counter-racist code, because you got to get rid of racism in order to do that. You can't have racism in nowhere on this planet or in the universe in order to do that. But in the process, we become universal man and universal woman. Keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And get the book by going to producejustice.com. And the book is addressed to the individual person the individual person, so that the individual person becomes a whole nation within him or herself. Rather than members of a nation, the entire world becomes a member of you in the most constructive manner. All right?
Yes, sir.
Make yourself the center of the universe as a person. There's nothing that gets better than that.
Okay. All righty. All righty. Let's go to the phone lines. Line number 1, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Good morning. Good morning. Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Fuller, I have a question, too. Have you heard of the old saying, give me liberty or give me death?
Yes.
Okay. Now, is it logical for non-white people on this planet to have an independent, united mind state of give me justice or give me death?
Is it logical? Sure, it's logical, but you shouldn't wish for death, all right? You should wish for justice and work toward producing justice without the death part. Okay. But you may be killed in the process because you're on a battlefield. The whole world is a battlefield. But you might say, to kind of paraphrase General Patton, he said something like, he is reported to have said something like, no, and I won't use the kind of what you might call vulgar language that he used, but from what I understand, reportedly, he said something to the effect of, you don't die for your country, you make that other person die for his in a war. All right?
And a follow-up question to that, do you feel that if non-white people conquered the fear of death, would that contribute to justice?
Well, it could. I mean, but fear that's an emotion. Fear does serve a purpose, but you want to have an intelligent fear, okay, according to the code. There is such a thing as intelligent fear rather than non-intelligent fear. See, non-intelligent fear is when you're just afraid and traumatized to the extent that you don't try to do anything to eliminate what is causing the fear. See, so you use intelligence to conquer fear. You're not afraid of being a tightrope walker by what?
Yes.
You practice walking a tightrope, all right, at a lower level, maybe.
Mr. Fuller, not to cut you off,
Right.
The last question I have before I go, I know other people want to call. The word from, is it in the word guide? And can you explain the word from?
No, it isn't. But I use the word from in the way that it is used in the dictionary. It's just from. From. You're from, and it's really that remark that I made, you're from everywhere you've ever been, and from every place you have never been, is to center on a thought about. And you might say, well, what's the practical use of that? That's a legitimate question. That's a logical question of that statement. I wrote it to get black people out of this habit of thinking that we're from Africa. Because everything is supposed to be centered around the individual and counter-racist logic. And if you get to thinking that you are from a certain place, a lot of people, I have noticed, and I myself included, we always thought of a certain place that I had to get back to in order for me to function. That I couldn't, if I go some other place, I can't function. That is anti-universalism. I think that it's logical for non-white people, the people who are victims of white supremacy, to practice being every place is my place. Any place that you happen to see me, I am self-contained and can function in a maximum constructive manner, regardless of where I am. All right? That I don't have a place. See, the white supremacists.
So is it safe to say that from doesn't represent origin?
Yes, because if I start talking about where I'm from every place I have ever been. I'm from my mother's womb. Where is my mother's womb from? See, I keep giving illustrations like that. How
so from can represent
how
origin.
much of from are you from? Okay? Let's ask that question. That's the question. How much of from are you from when you are from? Okay? You're talking about infinity. Infinity is every place that you have never been. And infinity is also every place that you have ever been. And you can say infinity is right where you are now.
Now, yes.
See what I mean? See, if you start thinking about that, you're thinking on a universal level, not on a level that we have been taught. And the reason for this is, I start thinking in this way. I read something in a novel, in a short story by Richard Wright. And this white person asked this Negro, this colored person, this black person, said, "Hey, boy, what are you doing up here? Why aren't you down there with the rest of the Negroes?" See what I mean? In other words, you have a place. See, all the rest of the Negroes are down there on the levee. And we got a flood here. What are you doing up here alone, wandering around, when all of the rest of your people are down there on the levee, where they belong, where I sent them? That's really what he's saying. See what I mean? So black people got this idea that we have a place. All right? And where is that place? Wherever the white supremacists say our place is. Or even if we get a place of what we call our own. The white supremacists know that we are at that place, and so they will have to approve of that place. So we need to get out of this thing about our place. Our place is wherever we happen to be.
Yes.
Just like those two people who were in Starbucks. They happened to be there. They said they were there to meet somebody for a business deal. And that's what they were waiting on. So, any place that I happen to be, if you're black, I'm in my place. All right? Where's the place for the white supremacists, according to them? Any place that they happen to go in the universe, including all the other planets in the universe. Trillions of them. There are trillions of what they call heavenly bodies. And the white supremacists look at all of them and say, that's where I'm from, and that's where I'm going, if I want to. All right? And that's where I intend to go. And when I get there, that's my place. All right? And when I leave there, that's still my place. Because I'll be in another place, but if anybody else goes there, I'll say that's my place too. And you are on my place. And you'll say, but I'm trillions of miles away from the planet Earth. And they'll say, well, so what? Wherever you go and you happen to land somewhere, you're in my place. Why? Because I said so, that's why. Wow. That's how the white supremacists think.
All right. Well, thank you, caller. Thank you so much. Usually we don't like for you to ask 4 questions, but we are kind of up against a little time there. So he was permitted. One last question, Mr. Fuller, while we have a minute to go. Palmer wrote this. How do non-white people codify themselves adequately if they are being manipulated by powerful psychology, poisonous food, and poisonous entertainment?
Oh, you need a code for everything.
Okay.
You have to codify everything. That's in the code book itself.
All righty.
Codify every move that you make so that you get the most constructive result.
Okay. We got to leave it there. So let's say thank you to Mr. Fuller. Thank you, callers, for excellent calls. Thank you, Talktainment Radio. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.